are going to get a prayer from Pastor Michael Hamtenya.
Thank you very much, Director of Ceremony, for this opportunity. I want, before we go into a prayer, I just want to give you just small little words, very short words, that I've just quoted from Proverbs 10, verse 12, and Proverbs 13, verse 11. It says, hatred stirred up stiffy, but love covereth all sins. And the second one says, wealth gotten by vanity shall be dismayed, but that gathered by labor shall increase. Meaning, this word also goes to the young ones, our future generations, that you have to work for something and sweat for something in order for you to enjoy that something. Don't go for shortcuts. So right now, you might think that the time is long for you to complete and become somebody important, but if you just persevere in your education, believe me, you are going to see the sweetness of your time that you have wasted in school. It has paid off. So thank you very much. Let us pray. Gracious God, Heavenly Father, we say thank you. We gathered here because we know, God, that you are with us. Everywhere where we are and we call upon your name, there you shall be. And I believe, oh God, that you are here today. Father, I pray, let the power of your Holy Spirit be upon us today as we are going to engage into our commitment that we are having today here. Lord, bless all the proceedings. Everything that we are going to do, be led by your Spirit. Let the spirit of the devourer be removed so that we shall find peace and harmony until to the end of our meeting. Father, I pray that whatever we are going to do, let it be blessed. Bless every speaker and bless the listeners. In the name of Jesus Christ, I pray. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let us be seated. Honorable Lucas Moha, Chairperson of the National Council, Honorable Regional and Local Councillors of the Kavango West Regional Council present here, Mr. Daniel Ngidinwa, Executive Director of the Ministry of Urban and Rural Development, our Deputy Mayor from Kurenkuru Town, Ms. Fanny Kaundu, the Chief Executive Officer of Kurenkuru Town, Mr. Peter Sindimba, Chief Regional Officer of Oshikoto Regional Council, Ms. Mwenyo, our esteemed panelists present here, our invited guests, and most importantly, our children from the different schools surrounding Kurenkuru who are here, invited guests, the media, ladies and gentlemen. Let me welcome you all to this very prestigious event, which is aimed at kickstarting our celebration of the African Day of Decentralization, Local Governance and Local Development for 2024. Let me, maybe for the benefit of our young ones, explain what do we mean by decentralization within our government, we have the central government, which is based at the national level, where you find most of the offices are concentrated in Windhoek. But when we talk about decentralization, we are talking about that process of bringing those services that those different ministries at the central level are providing to the regional and local levels. That is what this day, this African Day of Decentralization is all about, is looking at bringing the services to the local level, where you find, for example, now as we are in Kavango West Regional Council, you will find that the different services offered by the different ministries, they come and set up their offices here within the region, within the different constituencies, and this is how service delivery to the local level, to the local people, will be accelerated. So decentralization consists of the transfer of public functions from higher tiers to lower tiers of governance. It means delegating or the delegation or the devolution of any function from a line ministry to either the regional council or a local authority. So at the regional level, decentralization aims to accelerate or to speed up regional development, for example, infrastructures. When these different offices, ministries, and agencies come and set up their offices here, the region gets infrastructures that are being developed in the region. You also get services that are brought at the local level where the people are, such as infrastructures maybe for water, infrastructures for energy, infrastructures such as roads, agricultural infrastructures, and many, many others. This is what we are talking about. We want government to be, within the people, so that the local people get to participate within the development of their constituencies, of their villages. So all these developments will require the involvement of the local people, hence the need for specific skills that are consummate to the required development within that certain area. If we need to build roads, we need skills to be built for those local people to be able to build those roads. If we need boreholes, we need skills to be developed for people to be developing those roads. If it is green schemes, we need skills within those localities so that those people will be able, to manage or to run those green schemes. So this day is celebrated every year on the 10th of August by all the African Union member states. This follows the adoption of the African Charter on the values and principles of decentralization, local governance, and local development. So the Charter makes provision for the commemoration of this day every year. So Namibia has been hosting this day every year, and as Kavango West Regional Council, we are taking over this celebration from Umsati, where it was held last year. Every year, this day is celebrated along the theme of the African Union, and the theme for this year is building resilient education and skilling systems rooted in Africa's realities at local levels. So bringing this theme here in our region, we are looking at our realities as Kavango West Regional Council into sub-themes. The first theme will be looking at addressing the problems of young people who are neither in education, employment, or training. We know that this is a reality of not only Kavango West region, but other regions of Namibia as well. And the second theme will be looking at school food, a key issue in educating the youth in production and consumption of local production, thus contributing to Africa's food sovereignty. With that short welcoming remarks, let me thank you and welcome you all again to this event. I am now going to hand over to our moderator, who is going to moderate this session, who is Mr. John Ikonja. I thank you very much. Mr. John, the floor is yours.
Very good afternoon. I stand on the protocol already established by my senior, Ms. Elizabeth. My name is John Ikonja. I am a TV producer and news presenter at the NBC, but my task today is to moderate this very important discussion. Now, our theme for this year, as already established, is building resilient education and skilling systems that is rooted in Africa's realities at local level. And this theme particularly is very significant as it addresses the urgent need to adapt our education and skill systems to the unique challenges, the urgent need to adapt to our education and skilling systems to the unique challenges and the opportunities present in African communities. Now, by focusing on local challenges and opportunities present in African communities, and also focusing on realities, we aim to develop strategies that are not only effective but also sustainable, ensuring that our youth are equipped with the skills and knowledge necessary to thrive. As already addressed earlier, the theme is further divided into two sub-themes. I'll just repeat that addressing the problems of young people who are neither in education, employment, nor training, which is abbreviated as NEET. And school food is a key issue in educating the youth in production and consumption of local products, thus contributing to Africa's food sovereignty. Now, these topics are very critical, and as they highlight the importance of holistic approaches and to education and development, integrating nutrition and practical skills training into the education framework. I will be joined by a group of experts to discuss these critical issues, and as I call on my panelists to sit here in the front, kindly just have your seat and also notice the microphone there on the chair, and then we can, of course, dive into our discussion. Our first panelist is, of course, the boss of the town of Kurenkuru, the Chief Executive Officer of the Kurenkuru Town Council, Mr. Peter Sindimba. My next panelist is a lecturer in Education Department at the International University of Management, Mr. Charles Kabanjani. My next panelist is also a lecturer, but with the University of Namibia, Dr. Gershon Sindano. Up next, of course, we can't have this discussion without having a representative from the youth. And this will be a member from the Kavango West Youth Forum, Mr. Stefanos Kudumo. And to complete this panel, we have the Inspector of Education in the Kavango West region under the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture, Ms. Esther Karondo. Very well. Now, of course, you can see that my panel is highly represented by the male gender. But of course, we have Ms. Esther in the middle. That's why we strategically asked that she sits in the middle, because she's, of course, going to be the main boss of this conversation. Now, before we dive into our discussion for this afternoon, I rather want to ask my panelists if we can start with a brief introduction, perhaps just to introduce yourselves, what you do, and your role of what you do here. So perhaps let's start with, let's start on from the right. Here, the CEO of the Kurenkuru Town Council.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, fellow panelists, honorable member. Let me just observe the protocol as initially established by the director of these events. I'm Sindimba Petrus Shikongo. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Kurenkuru Town Council. My role as the Chief Executive Officer is I'm the head of the organization, and I do implement council's decision and the resolution, and I make sure that all programs, projects, activities of the councils are being implemented. So under me, there are also departments that are headed by managers and the other supporting staff member. I thank you.
I'm Gershon Sindano, the lecturer at the University of Namibia. And maybe just a disclaimer, I'm speaking here as an academic because I happen to be the electoral commissioner. So all my arguments from this perspective are from a scholarly perspective, not as an electoral commissioner, please.
Well noted.
Good afternoon. My name is Esther Karondo. I am the Inspector of Education for Kanjimi Circuit. My role is actually to ensure quality in teaching and learning. So in a nutshell, is to ensure that the national curriculum for basic education is fully implemented in schools.
Good afternoon. My name is Stefanos Kudumo. As I was introduced, that a member of youth group. On the other side, I'm a chairperson for Communal Land Board of Kavango West. Again, vice chairperson for nature conservation in the region. My role, or our role as youth, is to oversee the activity of youth, as well as representing youth in various activities or in various institutions.
Good afternoon. My name is Kabajani Charles. I think many people know me from the other fraternity of the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture. And when I exited that ministry, I joined the International University of Management and from the Faculty of Education. I must indicate that my representation here is solely, and the knowledge I have is from the Faculty of Education. There would be some limitations if any question or whatever stretches out of this faculty. I will not be able to do justice to that question. I do not hold any position of authority at the university. I just simply come from the academia, and I will reflect what the Faculty of Education does and what we have been doing in Kavango West, where we exist.
Very well. Thank you so much, my dear panelists, for the well-versed introductions. I'll make sure not to get in trouble with, of course, all the disclaimers here. Now, for all of us, if you are joining us, not joining us present here today, we are, of course, streaming live on NBC2. We are also live on the NBC Digital News page on YouTube, and we are also streaming live on the Facebook page of the Ministry of Urban and Rural Development. All right, now, as we begin our conversation, now again we'll start with the CEO, rather just to reflect or rather help us understand what the meaning of the theme. Of course, building resilience, education, and skilling systems rooted in Africa's realities at local level. How does this theme align with your role?
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Maybe before I come to the questions, let me just give a short introduction that Nkurenkuru, it's a sub-national government. I just wanted to to clarify something, because some people, even when they wrote letters to us, they say you are organization or you are company. We are not a company. Nkurenkuru or local authorities in Namibia, they are government, sub-national government. As it was initially said by the director of ceremony, that we have got central government, regional government, and local government. So Nkurenkuru, it's a government. So maybe coming back to now, for the theme, I would like first to appreciate the initiator for choosing this theme and for making Nkurenkuru as a sub-national government to host this year's Decentralization Day. So, as it's indicated, more particularly, I will focus also on the sub-theme where young peoples who are neither in education, neither in employment or in training, and our role as a government in addressing those issues. So, as I have indicated, in terms of decentralization, decentralization is bringing services closer to a locality or to the people. So, Nkurenkuru, as a government, we provide a conducive environment where services that are needed to be brought to the community can smoothly flourish. So in terms of education, what do we do as a council? You have heard one of the panelists say that he is a lecturer here from IUM, Nkurenkuru. We provide land to institutions tertiary institutions or educational institutions so that our people, youth, elderly can be educated. When I say elderly, because under the Ministry of Education, there are programs that are geared to upgrade the skills of those elderly people. So, in Nkurenkuru, if I might say to the local authorities, when we provide land, like if I might say that in Nkurenkuru now we have got we have allocated 18 plots to various educational institutions, and 2 universities, IUM and Vilvichia University, they have already established themselves here. So they have, as a council now, we have also contributed to the decentralization by availing land so that they can come and educate our people. So others, there are schools here. I might also mention one secondary school, that's Nkurenkuru project, that's been constructed and soon to be completed. We also availed land for that. We have recently allocated on the 1st of this month. It's just only the constitutional mandate that we need to follow. Maybe by tomorrow you'll see it in the newspaper that the council has also approved a plot for a new modern early childhood center under the Ministry of Gender Equality and Poverty Eradication. So once the process is being done, ministerial approvals obtained, I hope they will also see a modern early childhood center, and we were told with a hostel in Nkurenkuru. So other institutions we also do provide. So now, when it comes to those who are not in education, neither in employment, we provide land to the investors. When the investors come to Nkurenkuru, so we provide a conducive environment. Employments are created for those unskilled people, being when they are constructing houses, when they are constructing offices, like we have also allocated most of the ministry's land in Nkurenkuru. When they are constructing, so employment is being created for those people who might not have skills, those who might not have employment. So we also make provision for urban agriculture. As of now, because one of the sub-theme number 2 of this decentralization date of this year, we are talking about feeding the children at school. So we have got urban agriculture, land, and from the 16 we have allocated about 7. Although not most of them they are in production, but at least it's also creating employment. And where we need to go and get those services very far, it's been supplied within our town and within our region. So therefore, although education is key, so people who are not educated should not feel left out. There are opportunities created through the central government in terms of literacy programs, in terms of, we might say, the COSTEC, the training institutions, the VTCs. So for your information, those who are also here, the VTC is also going to be completed for Nkurenkuru. And we were told maybe by next year, the training might also start. So in nutshell, I just wanted to be brief, just to say that Nkurenkuru, as a sub-national government, have a role to play in terms of decentralization. I thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, moving on, I want to now move to Mr. Charles Kajambani, who is the lecturer in the Education Department. Perhaps just to also reflect on what you think the theme that we are, of course, underlining today, how it actually relates to your role as lecturer and of course as a member of the academia.
Thank you very much. I joined IOM in 2022 in the Faculty of Education. And IOM Kurenkuru has been in existence since 2015. Universities are established for a purpose. When IOM was established in 1994, it focused on the center. As it grew, it decentralized its services to where the populations are. And in this particular instance, IOM Kurenkuru was established. We have been part and parcel of the development of this region, Kavango West, and we have also been part and parcel of the establishment of the Kurenkuru Town Council. And we have been there when these two management areas and authorities were established. As we explore the theme, resilience and education and skilling system in Africa, I think we will need to bring it down to what we have done as an institution within Kavango West and the Kurenkuru town in which we operate. Sometimes it's too foreign to talk about Africa without localizing our own problem and understand as to what we do within our own localities. Finding ourselves within a locality of this town, and Kavango West in particular, we have, as a university, brought service to the students and the population that direly needed this service. We operate on a curriculum, and every university has a program, has programs, and these programs are found at the center, and they can also be dissolved or relocated to the periphery where a university wants to function. We look at our curriculum as a university. We have been continuously, as a university, meeting the needs of the community and the populace, have been continuously revising our curriculum. The university engages with stakeholders on a time-to-time basis, including government, businesses, and society, to ensure that our programs are relevant, responsive to the current cultural, socio-economic landscape in which we operate. For instance, our modules, those that come from the faculty or probably from education and from schools, would understand that modules such as life skills and guidance and counseling cater for the guidance and of essential learners in our schools in the whole Kavango West. We also have focused our skilling to be more practically. In this particular vein, we have recognized that skills are important for job market. IOM has integrated experiential learning programs and opportunities in its programs. This includes internship programs at the university where students are attached to businesses that allow students to apply theoretical knowledge in the world in which they will operate. This initiative has always been there and provides competencies for highly valued employers and employees to be able to access the service of this new university at a close range. In the local authorities of this town, in the regional councils of this town, in schools, are attached to the university through relevant programs that they attend to make them more competent at the job, without them leaving their job markets or leaving their job environment. They are attached to the university where they study on a part-time basis. We advocate strongly, and our strong emphasis on research. Faculty of Education specifically is involved in projects in schools, right, and local communities. By prioritizing research, many of the communities have benefited. IUM not only enhances its academic reputation, also plays a vital role in driving local development initiatives in Kavango West. We have flexible learning opportunities, as I've indicated. You don't leave your job. IUM is just on the corner. You enroll. The courses are short-term, 6 months or a year. You complete, you get the competencies that the job market in which you occupy requires. Making education more accessible to the local communities where we have decentralized. We are a partner in the development of programs in this region, be it at the regional council, be it at the local council. We are always invited to take part through partnership, and we have always fulfilled that role. Leadership is important as we mingle into the 21st century. Our institution has incorporated leadership training in programs across disciplines, and our focus is to equip our graduates with skills necessary to be leaders of the future and the leaders of the 21st century. We have grown the economy of Kavango West, although we also are proud to indicate that our influence has gone to all other regions. But Kavango West has always been our beneficiary. If our students are not around and they have gone on recess, the whole town is dead. You go to the shop, nobody is there. You go to the bank, you are alone. We have heightened spending in this town, rentals in this town, food in this town, transportation and entertainment. It is known at this stage, Kurenkuru is known as a town of entertainment. You come here, you will, even for those visitors that are here, when evening sets, you will be proud to be in this town. Cultural diversity, we believe that we operate in a cultural diverse environment, and therefore we recognize the existence in which we are. We have integrated our programs in the university to attach to communities that we have around us. The Rukwangali, through our own local languages, Thimbukushu, Silozi, Romanyo, Oshindonga, Oshkwanyama, through cultural activities that brings these communities together at our campus. As soon as that activity takes place, everybody joins in, the community becomes part of it. Creation of employment. Our institution has always made sure, through our existence as a campus, that communities, small and medium enterprises exist. They have grown in number. There were very few. In 2015, when we established, the university only had 54 students. At the moment, we count about over 3,000 students that are within this environment. And sometimes our IUM students overrun the whole Kurenkuru town. We recognize the dynamics that are there. We might not have met all the requirements of decentralization or decentralizing our programs. But we realize that a university is always in touch with other universities. We collaborate and we interact, we do research. We have now started interrogating the issues of, are we really relevant? We believe that the communities in which we are changing. The environment is changing. Right. The university is moving towards introducing agriculture in the near future, tourism, water management. Since we are having a river that is dwindling in terms of drought, sooner we'll be crossing over without a river. So we need to train our people. Land management, the land that we have is valuable. And environmental sustainability, so that we are able to live with the resources, natural resources that we have for the future of this generation. I thank you. For the students, for those either in education or employment, this university is a university established on the basis of community and research. Our attachment at this stage is to make sure those that have finished their grade 12 and need to be trained, those that are already in system need to be trained, are brought to benefit from the education we provide. As for community engagement, we move around and understand where are these people through our own internal surveys. Where are these people that are not employed, neither in education? We have carried out our own initiatives through training, inviting communities to come and attend agricultural training. We give them certificates and they go and do their own personal gardening since they are very close to the river. So research is critical in our operations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Charles, for the brief explanation of that. Now, to our audience, of course, present here today, you also will get an opportunity to pose your question to our panelists. We'll have we'll choose a few, of course, for those who would like to pose their questions to our panelists, of course, to rather elaborate or emphasize on whatever it is that you need emphasized. I would like to direct the next question to Ms. Esther Karondo, the Inspector of Education in the Kavango West region, just also to speak on the significance of this theme. Of course, it's education being built on resilience and, of course, skilling systems rooted in Africa's realities at local level. Could you perhaps just explain to us, from the perspective of your role, as to the significance of this theme and how it relates to that, and of course what the future holds for education in the Kavango West region?
Thank you. Looking at the theme, which says building resilient education and skilling system rooted in Africa's reality at local level, for us as a Directorate of Education, Arts and Culture, what it means to us is first to understand what challenges we have as education before we talk about strategies that we have in place to build that resilient education. We have challenges, and the challenges are those of high repetition rate. we have a challenge of high dropout rate. We have a challenge of low numeracy and literacy rates. So this has been proven through different research that has been undertaken in SADC. Now, as a directorate or ministry in general, we have different tools that address now the issue of resilience. Because for us to build a resilient education and skilling system, we have first to look at, is the education that we have responding to the needs of our society? We say that we have to contextualize. And if we are to contextualize, we are talking about Kavango West region. In my introduction, I said that my role is to ensure that the curriculum, the national curriculum for basic education, is fully implemented. Now, this curriculum that we are talking about is curriculum that has undergone various reforms starting from independence, coming to 2012 when we had the last curriculum reform where we said, let's look back, let's take a step back so that we see how best this curriculum that we have can address the needs of our society, where we have looked at the best aims that we have looked at the skills, where we talk about the communication skills, the cognitive skills, and all other skills that are relevant to transform a society. Now, us as a directorate, we believe that we have to understand our clients. And our main clients are the learners. And our interest is to ensure that every child who is in our care, who passes through this basic education, really gets the best education possible so that they remain relevant to the needs of the society, to the needs of Kavango West. Now, what is it now that we do? We have what we call early grade assessment tools, because we have said that our learners lack in the literacy and numeracy. So this is not something that you can just tell by letting a learner read, but you have to carry out a certain assessment that should position that learner as to at which level they are, so that you give them the appropriate support that they need as individuals. So those are the things that we have been carrying out, and we have also been engaged in diagnostic tests for learners that are moving from one grade to another, because we want to understand the level at which they are so that we provide them with appropriate learning support. Now, to build a resilient education and skilling system has to do with how best are our teachers giving this information to the learners. Now, before the teachers do this, the teachers have to be well trained. And this is what we have been doing continuously. We have colleagues in the professional development that always identify the needs of teachers, and as a result, teachers get trained so that they appropriately support these learners, so that these learners that we send out in the society are really ready to respond to those needs. Yes, we are talking about inclusivity, we are talking about access. Now, how do we ensure that every learner has access to education? Because if we are talking about a resilient education, you need to have learners that have gone through this education system. Now, what we do as a region, we engage in aggressive admission campaigns. We go in the inland, advocating for admission to ensure that every learner who is at whatever corner of our villages really gets into the classroom and gets the best education possible. We also have to say that as a directorate, you know, we have this good organizational architecture where at every level, each one has an input. So we have the DATS department, we have race. So those colleagues go out to ensure that the learners that have dropped out are engaged. Parents are engaged. We need to understand the reasons that led to their dropout. And we don't just leave it to that. We try by all means to have these learners return. Because for us, we actually start the process, which we hand over to the Kabajanis, to the Dr. Sindanos. Now, if we are the starter of the process, what is our role? Our role is to ensure that we reduce that is evident today, that of having a mass of learners that are not in education, that are not in training, and that are not in employment. We cannot just leave them because they dropped out to get married, for example, because we have learners in grade 4 that are dropping out and then they end up getting married while they are still of a school-going age. So it is our role to ensure that we get them back and then they receive the best education possible so that when they go out there, they remain relevant. Now, how do we perhaps, or how do we want to contribute to this reduction? We have some plans, which of course would need funding. You know, if you are to transform education, if you are to become resilient, you have to ensure that there is funding for education. It cannot happen in the absence of that. Going back in the past, our secondary schools, or some of our secondary schools, had what we used to call farms. Kanjimi Murangi, Levi Hakusembe is a point in case. So one way in which we could contribute to the job market is to rehabilitate these farms that once existed, because we have everything there. We have the pig stalls in existence. We have the different dimensions that they created within those schools. So if the ministry can assist to get funding, then we will have poetry in there, then we will have horticulture, then we will have animal husbandry there. And this will serve three purposes. Number one, it will assist learners that are to do their practicals so that they cannot just get this when they go to tertiary or Newdam, for example. And also, in a way, it will also culminate into food production. Right now, we are depending on others to provide food for schools. But if we have some of our schools providing this food, then school feeding program will be something else that we'll be talking about. And also, it will assist now the dropouts to get jobs within our secondary schools, agricultural units. So those are some of the ambitious plans that we have, that provided that we are given the necessary funding, we are going to address this chaos that today we have in the community. I thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, so we are smoothly running out of time. And I would just like to make a request to our panelists, perhaps also just try to keep it a little brief. Of course, also allow time to our audience to also perhaps engage with the panel as well. But moving on, we would like to pose the next question to Dr. Sindano, just to perhaps understand from the lecturer's perspective, your view, rather, of the importance of the day that we are celebrating, a theme as well. And lastly, perhaps just how the University of Namibia is, of course, addressing the educational needs of the people who are, the NEET that we, of course, mentioned earlier.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Is that clear?
We'll quickly just see if, just try that one, yeah.
I hope this one, yeah. Thank you. Maybe before we get to the crux of the matter, resilience and upskilling, and then I will define it, I will argue from an academic point of view. First, there are two things, and it's good that we have learners here. There are two things that Namibia lacks. Once you solve that problem, you will be able to talk about decentralization and building a resilient education and the skilling system. One, the biggest problem we have with decentralization is we do not have a decentralization model. Fact. We only have a decentralization policy, but not a model. It's like building a house without a house model. How do you then talk about decentralizing education or even planning the education system that responds to the needs and the aspiration of the Namibian people if you do not have the model that spells out the functionality? And secondly, second thing that Namibia does not have, I'm a scholar. I have tried. I've carried out research several times, but until today, I cannot find these two things. The model, decentralization model, and the second one is Namibia does not have an education philosophy. We don't have an educational philosophy. We have teaching methods and teaching approaches, but we don't have a defined education philosophy. Now, when you have these fundamental problems, then it becomes difficult for you to implement anything because your core is already flawed. Now, let's come to building, resilient education from a university perspective. Let's define what is building a resilient education. What are you looking at when you have a resilient education? What you're looking at is you want an education system which is robust, able to adapt, responds to the ever-changing world, and it appreciates the advance in technology, such as the use of IA, artificial intelligence. And from a university point of view, what we do is carry out research, identify, needs from different societies and be able to come up with, curriculum that responds, not necessarily curriculum, but we call them course outlines that responds to some of these needs and aspiration. And that's how we respond to that. For example, the university is busy developing the AI policy, artificial intelligence policy, so that we appreciate the ever-changing world. And the younger generation are at the forefront. We refer to them as the digital natives. And the only way we can talk about a robust education system is the education system that embraces technology. And then secondly, skilling. What are we talking about when you talk about skilling? Now, this is where educational philosophy comes in. If you in Germany, the education philosophy is very clear. It's vocationalization. In Namibia, if you want to talk about skilling, then you want to vocationalize your education system. If you come to Kavango West, for example, now we are in Kavango West, we are in Kurenkuru, and Kavango West is roughly 97, 98, 99% rural. Now, what are the needs and aspirations of the people who reside in such a geographical location and environment? If you want to build an education, if you want to come up with solutions to some of these issues, you have to look at these realities. That's what building a resilient and upskilling education system is all about in this context. So I think I'll make it short. I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, before I proceed to the last panelist, brother just wanted to add a follow-up question to you, Doctor. This platform, or this day rather, that we're celebrating, of course, the African Day of Decentralization, local governance and local development, serves as a platform for a lot of things to happen. We have a lot of stakeholders that were brought to Kurenkuru, of course, to benchmark on a lot of things. What opportunities do you see this event, of course, bringing in terms of improving education, especially in Kurenkuru or the Kavango West region at large?
That's a very interesting observation. It's a very interesting observation. You see, maybe before we look at what could be some of the benefits, and by the way, those who come to this town are the benefactors, and we, the residents of this town, are the beneficiaries. Now, but here is the challenge. Until we identify the two faults that I mentioned, because currently what you have is, and it's very interesting that tomorrow I think we'll have a sizable number of executive directors coming here, so that we then talk about the issue of decentralization. Maybe before I come to the benefits when people come here, sometimes we use delegation, devolution interchangeably with decentralization. An executive director sits in Windhoek and he has so much administrative duty, and then decides some of these administrative duties should be delegated to someone sitting in Kurenkuru. And now the person who occupies a top office in Kurenkuru wants to procure a tire, and this procurement cannot go on unless an executive director who sits in Windhoek gives an approval. And yet, from this executive director's perspective, there's decentralization. What exactly have you decentralized? Is it administration? Is it the filing part? Or power? Have you decentralized power? And I hope when you ask about the benefits of different organizations and entities that are coming to town, it's not just in economic benefits in terms of renting and all that, but we also want to benefit in terms of, I hope these things will be discussed tomorrow thoroughly, so that we benefit in terms of decentralization by means of sharing power, so that those with whom responsibilities are placed upon can take decisions and be able to take decisions without an approval of someone who sits in Windhoek. But it's good when it comes to towns or in places like Kavango West, where you have probably 98% of the region rural, because then a lot of young entrepreneurs can learn a lot from others, and that could help. But as an academic, for me, the two things that I need to write home about is, tomorrow, let's inform those in power that there are two things we must solve for Kavango West to get to its desired position. One, come up with an educational and decentralization model that responds to the needs and the aspiration of these people. For example, agriculture. Now, the problem that regions like Kavango will forever face, I stress that, is while you want to invest a lot in green schemes, on the other hand, then there's a big elephant in the room. That is SACU, because the SACU formula says spend more money buying products from South Africa, and then your SACU revenue goes up. It's a simple formula. And now you want to invest in agriculture, and then what happened to SACU? You see the conundrum, you see the problem that we have. So I hope these things are not just issues that scholars and academics talk about, but they find, a place in the hearts and minds of the politicians and those who have the desire to see this region go forward. So in short, I probably may not be an expert who will talk about the local benefits in terms of the visitors who come to town, but scholarly, that's what I feel strongly about. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doctor. We are going to move on to our last panelist now, who's going to, of course, talk on behalf of us, the youth, who are, of course, here in large numbers. Mr. Stephanus Kudumo, thank you so much for making the time to be with us. Perhaps just give us your perspective of the significance of this theme of celebrating Africa Day of Decentralization. Of course, also share a bit more about, of course, how the nature conservation initiatives that you are part of also contribute to what exactly we are doing here today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I can see my other panel colleagues, they've said much about it, but I'll present it in a way of we, the youth, what is our say on this day. Yeah, let me just say it first that there is nothing for us without us. It's obvious that as youth, we should be present so that we can voice out or we can act upon request. We can respond what they are demanding or requesting to us as well. So, as youth side, we have challenges that I should like to present down here. The first challenge that I have to bring here is, although this decentralization was brought down, but the crafting of policies, it's sometimes sidelining the youth. And the other side is information sharing. One thing I can reference is Kavango West. I can say 85% rural, and the remaining 15% is urban. If I'm to speak in general, let me use the youth office. I think we only have one office, which is in Kahenge. If I need information as a youth, I have to travel from Mangupi to Kahenge, and I'm a youth who's not working. How do I get this information? Not all of us in the region as youth having smartphones. That is challenge number 2. The other challenge also is the mismatch. The mismatch that I'm talking about here is, some years back, you will find that in our region, we were more challenged with teacher for economics, accounting, business study. So we have to get those who study accounting, not as a teacher, to come and assist. Now, the teaching might not go in line how the Director of Education is expecting this person to deliver. So at the end, it's a fail that's going to come. That's the fourth challenge that we have. The other one is lack of participation within us, the youth. If I'm to reference within this house, without school learners, we youth who are dropouts or even at university or who completed university, we could not make up to fill this hall so that we can get the information that we are going to get. So this is the lack of participation within us, youth. So we set and ignore on such informations. But we'll try maybe to encourage after this panel is what we can do. The other point also is lack of, let me just put it in a basic language, lack of food in houses. That's why even at school, they are facing a high drop out of learners. Food is a problem at home also. So maybe us Africans, we live in extended family. We depend on one person. And if that person all of a sudden disappear in different criteria or different things, so the motivation that we have, us who were present that time, will go down and we will not participate. Even the teacher goes and say, no, I'll be doing this and that. So even it's giving extra work to teachers to go and do some coaching in houses to assist. So my message here, because I do not want to speak more, my message here that I can say is policies of our country has to change to go in line with the youth demand. If they want just to put policies there that are in favor of certain things and still expecting youth to act, so I know we will be named that we are noisemaker, but we are not noisemaker. We are demanding what is for us. As youth representative or youth leaders, we are encouraging at our best our fellow youth to participate, to register to universities, to go to school. But the turnout, there are certain things that's trying to drag us back. I can say thanks to other gender, female gender, especially the youth. In most of universities, you'll see that the high number that's graduating is female. But as male, the number is low. Maybe what I could say is the projects or the program that's running, girl child program that's running, it's motivating this other gender. What is on the side of the other gender that they leave aside? Is this program, can it assist or is only for girls? So if it can assist on the other gender, can they balance this equation so that at least the number should not divert or live on a big gap? 75% graduating University of Namibia, female. Now 25% male. So at the end, it's where even you end up, we are going to have GBV in houses. But I do not want to speak much on that. What is how will it come up with such things? But I know some of this is the cause. But in short, that is the little that maybe I could try to share about the theme for today.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kudumo. Thank you for that. All right, it's now the opportunity for us in the audience to pose our questions. Unfortunately, we are behind time, so I will be forced to only allow 2 questions for now. And perhaps we have a wired mic here in the front. So for anyone who has a question, please raise your hand. And then we can allow you to come and stand here and pose your question, also indicating to who exactly you are posing the question to. We have the Honorable Governor here. We can give you the opportunity first, and then we'll give the next one to the gentleman in the white. Please just move forward to the mic here and pose your question. Can we have you can move forward, please, and then you can just stand by this mic here. Also, just the microphone here at this very point. Also, please just introduce yourself and, of course, who you're posing your question to.
All right. Thank you very much for the platform. My name is Andreas, a teacher by profession. Just to confirm, just for directions, only 2 questions.
Just perhaps one question that you can pose now, and then we give another opportunity to one more member of the audience so that we can allow enough time for the rest of the panel discussion.
All right. Thank you very much. Actually, I wanted to ask a question from Dr. Sndano and Mr. Kapajani, but now I'll just direct the question to the representative of the Minister of Education, Ms. Esther Karondo. All right. The presentation of our inspector is on education in trying to build a resilient education. All right. My question is now, in building a strong education and skill system rooted in Africa, we also need to look at certain issues. One, like for example, the issue of discipline. All right. When we talk of discipline, we are also trying to look at how, my question is, how do we close the existing gap, which Ms. Karondo have clearly stated that today we have a high number of dropouts and then a high number of repetition. So for different reasons. Now, in building education, the great education for all, we want to look at that discipline is enforced. Now, in enforcing discipline, that means the teacher and the learner need to be in line where we are all having that right of making sure that we are in one. But the problem here is now we are looking at one of the two that are in class. One has the right and then one do not have the right. And the person with no right is the teacher. And the teacher is the one who's supposed to ensure that there is discipline going on. Now, how do we close this gap when the teacher, for example, do not have the right to ensure that the best education is in line? Because the point here is that we want the best result, and also passing on, how can the teacher pass on information to the learner? That was the point which Ms. Karondo have pointed out. Now, how do I pass on information as a teacher if this individual is refusing to milk in the information that I am trying to pass on? Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll now give an opportunity to our next member of the audience to pose their question. I hope, Ms. Karondo, you've taken note of the question posed. We are now going to give the next... Yes, please.
My name is Hankosi Katrina. I'm from the International University of Management, from the Faculty of Education, Geography and History Secondary. My question goes to Ms. Esther, which is when it comes to providing education to every boy child or girl child in Kavango West is essential and is very important. And my question is this: how has the ministry, what has it done when it comes to learners that are slow learners in different schools? What strategies have been put in place when it comes to these learners, that when a teacher is teaching, this learner is not catching up, and the learner only understand when the teacher has to go extra miles? But throughout my educational journey, I'm too close. My question is, what strategies has the ministry put in place when it comes to slow learners at different schools? Because I recall during my educational journey, I had different peers that had problems in schools when it comes to learning. What strategies have the ministry given to teachers when it comes to these learners, when it comes to understanding? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the questions. I'll give an opportunity to one more student to give questions, and then we quickly just get through our panelists to answer, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm from International University of Namibia. My name is Peshiano Wakudumo. I'm a second-year student, and my question is for Mr. Sindano. I know our 4 pillars of education in Namibia are access, equity, quality, and democracy. My personal question is that, do you personally think that we can use these 4 pillars to actually build our decentralization model that you said we don't have? Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. We're now going to give the opportunity to your worship. And we did see a signal, the worship of the town of Okahao. Thank you so much, your worship.
Thank you very much. And actually, I had 2 questions. And it's just a follow-up, especially to Mr. Kampayani. Nice to meet you, long time from Okahao. So my question is that you have mentioned here about that you are doing research, and I believe that research is maybe by engaging the community or either through meetings or questionnaires. And specifically, you have said you have assessed the need of Kavango West. And now my question is that you have really IUM done a great job, but when we are looking at, we have got more teachers in the street now. So my question is, how resilient and strategical are you trying to cap this gap between what you are putting out and that is being absorbed by these youngsters? The last one, if I can be allowed, is to Dr. Sindano. Dr. Sindano also have touched and bitterly saying that in Namibia we do not have the decentralization in terms of model and education philosophy. And these are the key words now. How best is your university trying also to organize so that we harmonize this one and then we can put our education to the right track? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Worship. All right, I think we all now have gotten our questions. We are now going to give the opportunity to our panelists to answer the queries. Ms. Esther, would you like to begin to answer those questions, please?
Hello. The first question, if I heard well, is how do you enforce discipline? Am I right?
Could you just confirm if that's the right question? Yes, that's a confirmation.
First, I have to start with what we as Africans believe in. We believe that it takes the whole village to raise a child or to discipline a child. Now, this child finding him or herself in the classroom with a teacher. If it comes to the enforcement of discipline, we have guidelines as to how to discipline a child. And we also have guidelines as to if in the classroom discipline cannot be successfully be enforced, what is the next level? But ultimately, the parents have to be brought in, because when it comes to issues of discipline, it's not only an issue of the teacher or an issue between the teacher and the learner, but it also has to involve the parents of that child. But we have to do it within the limits that we are guided with. Coming to the second question, which is, what has the ministry done to slow learners? Before I answer this question, I have to state that every child can progress, provided that the right additional support for learning is provided. Research has proven that. Now, in my presentation as I spoke, I said that at schools, we identify these learners that have learning needs, individual learning needs. And then we also have a policy that clearly states what to do if a learner is falling behind. How best can we support this learner? That's why we have the learning support groups at the school, where we identify the needs of these learners, and then we cluster these learners as per their needs. Schools develop programs, and then they implement these programs. Now, for us as inspectors of education, our role is to monitor that the implementation of learning support programs have taken effect in schools. So, for you as student teachers, know that your role when you get in a school is to support this learner that has that need, because that learner, be different from another, can still progress to the next level. The only difference is the rate of progression that is more individualistic. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Esther. Let's give the next opportunity to Mr. to just also give your answers to a few questions that were posed to you.
If I'm to top up on the first question, it's due to a democratic country. That's why some people, they overturn democracy to be like, make them to be more comfortable. Sorry to say this, I have just to state it that self-boss, to be boss of something. Now, if our country could be in other countries like Yemen, South Korea, even in Nigeria and others, where you will find basic marital training. I hope this discipline that we are talking about, where learners are not complaining, they could go in line what's there for them, how teacher could assist them and other things like that. So what's lacking, for me, what I could say, why these learners are behaving in such a way, is because, number one, they disrespect the society. When you don't respect the society also will ignore you, or it will dismiss you out. From there, you are going to be more aggressive wherever you are going to be. And the other things is that maybe lack of basic law, because when you have a basic law, it will guide you. How do you act in the society, or even at school, or anywhere you find yourself? That's why sometimes we find ourselves as youths, when we get out of our country, in other countries, we will start begging the embassy or a minister of foreign affairs assisted, the learner was like this, or the student was like, it's because of lack of discipline within your own country. Where, for me, I wanted to request this at the last after, but I will have just to state it. I think in time to go, Namibia should introduce, if they are to get the chance, military basic training for everyone, so that at least we should understand on how we should behave in a society. The society that I'm in is everywhere you find yourself. How do you behave? So there's no a learner fighting with a teacher. For what? What are you going to benefit? So it's a pity on what happens, what we read in newspapers. It's a pity. But how do we get there? Is what I'm trying to request here. That is in short I wanted to stipulate it.
Thank you very much. I think, Mr. Kajabanga, you want to perhaps add on to that?
My apology for my voice. It sinks in, I think I have cough. The question that was posed to me, why do we train teachers? I think that is the concept. Why are we continuing? We have done research, but why do we continue training teachers when other teachers are not employed? Was that the issue?
I believe...
I think it goes there.
Could Your Worship perhaps just re-emphasize it quickly, just to get the clarity of that question?
Thank you very much, but it's not like Mr. Kambayani is trying to refrain it. It is only that they have done a good job by training the teacher. But now when we are planning resiliently and strategically, so now when we are looking at, we have got more teachers, not only from IUM, but also the university. It's a generic question. Now, our question is now, how are we resiliently or strategically planning to curb that we have got more teacher now? What next so that we can absorb them? Because we have got more output than admission them. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam of Education mentioned in the name teachers. The philosophical understanding around the development of a teacher is that teachers will always be there as long as children are born. I think we need to understand it from that point. As long as a child is born, that child requires a teacher, not teachers. It requires a teacher. Now, we as people that train teachers must move our programs, articulate our programs to the 21st century teacher. Because the 21st century teacher is not the teacher that we used to have, that stands in front of the learners and dictate what needs to be done. We have to understand that the children have also developed. And when they develop, we develop the teacher in the same vein. So this teacher is able to meet the requirement of what a learner requires. Now, we may be training our teachers to use specific facilities when they go into schools. And when they go into schools, these facilities are not there. And it boils down to the question, how relevant, how responsive is this teacher we have trained? Somehow, somewhere, we as universities that produce teachers and the ministry that uses them must collaborate at a certain point. And I understand that the fact that we are training this teacher to have these skills, we would expect that in the classroom, when they are advancing these skills, they must have these available. They must have these available. If you train a teacher that has computer, that has to go and teach computer studies in a school, this teacher is appointed and goes to a school only to find there is no computer in that school. How relevant is that teacher? How robust is that teacher you have produced? How do you use that teacher for the advancement of those children that are there? Somehow, somewhere, this is the mismatch we are talking about. You train a teacher that has all the skills, that has acquired all the apparatus to operate. You go into a school does not have a lab. Biology lab, physical science lab, they are not there. This is a teacher of physical science, chemistry, right? And how relevant is that teacher? This is what I'm talking about. We need to make sure the two systems, the trainers of teachers or producers of teachers, and where they are going, the resources must always be there so that this teacher is utilized adequately. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're going to give the opportunity to Dr. Sindano to, of course, also respond to the queries.
Okay. Now, that was a very interesting question. What is the university doing to harmonize? Now, the reason why I raised these two things is because this house is full of great minds, and I wanted to provoke you intellectually to start thinking about it, so that tomorrow, when you have all the top leadership here, you ask a simple question. I want you to challenge one executive director tomorrow. Just ask a simple question. Do we have a decentralization model upon which we base our decentralization policy? There will not be an answer. I guarantee you. There won't be an answer. Why? Because it doesn't exist. No one knows. But what should we do? It's not something that one person can develop or one university can develop. My recommendation is this. Come up with a national conference where you identify your national philosophy, your educational philosophy. What is it that you want when you send a kid to go to school, apart from get a job, get money, get married, have children, live life, and die? What else do you send someone to go to school for? What is it that you want them to bequeath to the next generation? How else do you want to locate yourself intellectually, economically, politically, in the geopolitical space that is so competitive? Those are the valid questions we should ask. I don't have answers. But my recommendation, like I said, let's come together. Let those with authority and power call a national conference. Let's identify, if we talk about decentralization, I wish I had power so I could just say, can we not continue until we identify a model where we are basing our policy? If we don't have the model, then let's not continue. Because what we have, if you think about it critically, if you look at all these documents, I think it's delegation, it's not decentralization. Most of what have been decentralized, quote unquote decentralized, is actually file administrative work that have been delegated to those in the regions, for example. So all I have to do is just to this is a challenge for us, all of us. I hope after we leave this venue, we go out there and then ask this question and then see if you can prove me wrong. I just want you to ask anyone, just anyone, ask them, does Namibia have a decentralization policy? And then the answer will be yes. And then ask them, on what model do you base it upon? Then it will end there. Your conversation will not continue. Now it's up to us to go and have discussion and come up with these solutions. And these are fundamental issues that, scholars must think about, and those who yearn for a decentralized, when we say decentralized, we are not saying Namibia is a unitary state. We are not saying this is a federal state like in the United States where you have a region with a semi-autonomous power. But what we're just saying is, do not decentralize files, but rather a bit of power so that those in power in the regions can procure a tire without an approval from someone who sits in Windhoek. That's it. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you so much. Let's please give a round of applause to all our panelists. Beloved panelists, thank you so much for making the time to, of course, give us your expert knowledge, of course, also answer the queries, and also thank you to our audience, of course, for posing those questions. Now, we are a little bit behind time, but we are going to now move to the next item. But I'm going to hand over to the Director of Ceremonies just to take over before we actually return to have another panel discussion. Of course, if you did not get your chance to pose your question, I'm pretty sure that the panelists are going to have a minute or two just to have a small chat with you and, of course, also respond to that. Of course, this is an event that's not only on for today, but tomorrow as well. And it's going to be a platform for all of us to, of course, engage and, of course, pose those questions and also get the answers that we are needing. But from now, I'm going to hand over to the Director of Ceremonies, and we'll be, of course, right back with another panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ikonja. As per our program, we are going to have a performance by INSPIB. I want to confirm if our artist is in the house. INSPIB is going to perform now while we are getting into the next session.
Start? Yeah, okay, start. Hello, guys. Hello, Vanekuto, Okwara. Dina Lange INSPIB. INSPIB, ya kuruga na kumwe saferen record potondoro. kwa wizati ya ruganene nore kumwe. Yeah. Takahumuka nona komoka sawi ezinzara ngwendi otore yowi ngwendi omoneka higa takawili ezinzara zana mvo awenkori iyo mone nenge nyame Kenya kogo ikatokere tazikuli nseni asitodili ansato turape na gatunda mbeli. Wapaika mararo. Wapaika mararo. Kamararo koke ipo kare owengo mtolo tiwilisa okoka kununuke memorie ni kapisi otiware ani memorie ni kapisi pero akusare. Nani kuembera tupoe kwa suku again, tat daneni ye kumwe tu afeni, ezakwa makot daneni ye tu afeni, tu enjoy kutoa wiza ke afotoa wiza. Tuli hafe seni ye akwetu wokwara. So play the song DJ. Easy boy. Yeah. Nguru kamona nyame mwene rona enona ewa oka koje dali kunisa ogorote no kumasiku kuvurori rote fire ronda boy akare atukararira neina ure 120 companies zange noye konyonga zange otereke mtima kwange kovela na kovela kovela, 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 nana kovela. Ronda baby tuze, ani kupiame masere, kechi kunima kulutwe ya. Ronda baby tuze, ani kupiame masere, kechi kunima kulutwe ya. Baby tuze ani kupiame masere kechi kunima kulutwe ya. Ronda baby tuze ani kupiame masere kechi kunima kulutwe ya. No kamuhaka umake kusabira ukwatere. Ronda baby tuze ani kupiame masere kechi kunima kulutwe ya. Next DJ. I need sound, boom,
Sorry, we are very much pressed with time. I think tomorrow we'll have a lot of time for more performances. I'm going to hand over to Mr. Ikonja to call our panelists for the second session. Mr. Ikonja, come take over.
Thank you once again. Yes, as mentioned, we are really pressed with time, and we are now going to move to the next panel discussion. And we are going to be quite brief with our panel discussion. So let me just rather call our guests, of course, who are going to be with us to discuss this next discussion. We have Ms. Cristela Mueño, the Chief Regional Officer of the Oshikoto Regional Council. Also on our panel, we have Mr. Godwin Sigabongo, the Director of Decentralization Coordination at the Ministry of Urban and Rural Development. also will be joined by Mr. Mulunga, the Acting Deputy Executive Director, the Department of Planning, Marketing and Administration at the Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform. We are now not going to have him, I understand, but we also are going to be joined by Mr. Nicholas Tembwe, the Director of Youth and Development at the Ministry of Youth and National Service, of course under the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture. I believe this will set the platform for our panel. As we did before, perhaps let's also just quickly just give an introduction of our roles as well as the importance of this event. Let's start with you, Ms. Christian.
Very much. My name is Krista. I am the Chief Regional Officer for the Oshikoto Regional Council. So meaning I am in the regional government. The role basically that I'll be playing here this afternoon is that of giving the perspective from a regional government, of course a regional council being responsible to oversee and ensure that we have socio-economic development within our regions, but additionally to that, to generally coordinate development at the regional level. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, Mr. Sigabongo, of course, we have dealt together on this event quite plenty times now. Perhaps also just give us your introduction, what your role exactly is when it comes to the decentralization coordination at the Ministry of Urban and Rural Development.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator and viewers out there. I just want to indicate that the Ministry of Urban and Rural Development is seized with the mandate of coordinating the implementation of decentralization. This is in terms of the applicable policy as well as the other legislations. In this, we collaborate quite extensively with other sector institutions, particularly line ministries and regional councils and local authorities, in which case, through the implementation as well as further identification of functions to be decentralized. I just wanted to indicate maybe from the onset that it's very important that when we talk about decentralization, particularly in our country, it has to be in the context, and that helps us to understand what decentralization is and what it isn't in Namibia, because it isn't the same everywhere. Even in federal states, among federal states themselves, it's not the same. Among unitary states, it is not the same. What makes the difference are the policy directives and the legislations governing such implementation. And maybe with this, I can also underscore the fact that deconcentration does not constitute decentralization in Namibia. This is guided by the definition as provided for in the Decentralization Enabling Act. We are quite aware of the fact that many sectors, line ministries, even prior to independence, had simply deconcentrated structures, some of which have continued existing and operating in that space. And there are those that have effectually decentralized. Ultimately, in terms of our laws, decentralization looks at devolving functions from central government to subnational government. And of course, within our policy provisions, there's a built-in provision for a transition phase, which is that of delegation. In this case, we are talking about transferring specific powers and certain carefully identified functions to provide certain services at regional level. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, we are now going to move to Mr. Nicholas.
Perhaps a brief introduction of what you do, and of course, what your role in relation to the event we are celebrating today.
Thank you very much, moderator. From the perspective of the Ministry of Sport, Youth and National Service, and with regard to the contribution that the ministry makes in terms of addressing the policy objectives to address challenges that are faced by young people who are not in school, in employment, or in training. The perspective and the focus really will be to unpack, some of the interventions that government have put in place in terms of addressing that specific segment of the population and how it unfolds, especially at the regional level, in the context of decentralization. Although our ministry is still in the process, but I'll be speaking from that perspective. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think I would like to start this discussion with Mr. Sikabongo, just to also perhaps give us a reflection of last year's celebration of the Africa Day for Decentralization, local governance and local development, and this year's celebration. Perhaps just a comparison between the two, and of course also the themes between those two events. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think what is most important is to note that each year, at the high level, that is basically at a continental level, the AU identifies a particular theme which is aligned to Agenda 2063 aspirations. In this particular case, we find that what we had last year was focusing more on issues that relates to entrepreneurship and others at local level. And also the role that our entrepreneurs have to play within the framework of the Africa Free Trade Area. In this particular case, the theme for this year is specifically focusing on education, particularly the skills and the resilient nature of our systems to be able to withstand whatever circumstances that you might be experiencing, be they political, climatic, and economic. There is a special reason why the theme for this year is focusing particularly on youth and particularly the issue of skills, because it's recognized that young people constitute the greater portion of our population, both at continental level and local level. Therefore, they are most highly affected when economic challenges, climatic issues hit the country or the continent. Their preparedness, adaptability, that surf through all these difficult times, and also perhaps to harness other potential and other opportunities, it becomes very, very critical. And hence that focus. I would want to say that it calls for deeper reflection in terms of the interventions that we have, particularly at local level. The panel members who spoke earlier spoke in terms of what they are doing at local level, particularly regional level, local authority levels. This reflection does not mean that there is nothing that is being done, but it also should be extended to the question as to whether that which we are doing is still relevant. How effective is it? Do we have to kind of redirect certain efforts? Perhaps certain issues that we may have considered as interventions to address issues affecting young people may no longer be relevant. And hence, we continue review. Some of these issues have to be put aside and perhaps develop new strategies.
Thank you so much. Let me move to Ms. Crystal to perhaps also just get your understanding of this event that we are celebrating, the significance of it, and of course also how the Oshikoto Regional Council, which you represent, supports national initiatives related to education and youth development.
Yes, thank you very much. You know, as we say, overall, decentralization really is about bringing services closer to the people. Now, I have said that I'm going to look at it from the perspective of a regional government. The key role that we really play is to create an enabling environment as government for whatever it is that we want to prosper. Now, through that, what we really do is to identify what are the key challenges and the needs that are there at the regional level. Now, along with that, we also definitely have to identify what opportunities are there to address the challenges that we have. There is a saying that goes, you cannot fix something if you do not know what is wrong. What is important really is for us to find solutions that are applicable to us to address the problems that we have. We are talking about opportunities, particularly in this case about resilient education and skilling systems. Now, what we really, for me, when you talk about resilience and skilling systems, there are key things that comes out, and that is the willingness that we have to grow, the ability that we have to really unlearn, but also to learn new things, and for us to have the right mindsets. Now, we know the regionals, our regions are different. But what is very important is for us to really localize. We are saying we need to find African solutions for African problems. Now, by that, I simply mean we really need to localize. We should have targeted plans in place for us to address issues that is on the ground. You know, I want to touch on a quote by the great Nelson Mandela, and that is, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Now, it simply tells us that with education, we can definitely have significant achievements. That is, if we do things right. And that is definitely for us to additionally learn from the real life situations and the situations that we face on a daily basis. Also, it is critical for us to really adapt to new ways of doing things. We should be able to transition also towards knowledge-based and skills-based situations on the ground, and that should be able to assist us to achieve our goals and objectives. We need also, and that is something that we really do at the regional level, is to ensure that education is equitable and that is also inclusive. To improve on the go. Some of the issues that we really need to do is to transfer the skills as well as experience. Education is important, but I want to say, if we look at those that are very successful in life, they did not necessarily only have education. If we talk about our own Opa Franz Indongo, for example, he was not educated when he started his businesses. If we talk about Silas Ntapuka. So I read an article once that said, if education is the key to success, why are there so many unemployed graduates? Now, a question like that should clearly open up our minds to think what it is that we need to do further. So, yes, it's true that education can surely open doors, but it is not the only key to success. Acquiring skills will help. We should have the will to want to succeed, the hard work, as well as perseverance for us to really achieve our goals and objectives. Again, I said as regional governments or as government, we are there to create an enabling environment. But it is also important for us to have the human resources that are developed, and also for us to have institutions that are capacitated to then achieve what we want to achieve. But also, most importantly, to have policies that are relevant and that are addressing, of course, the challenges that we have.
Thank you so much for those great insights. Let's move to the youth service and talk about the specific youth empowerment programs that are currently being implemented by the ministry which you represent to support development and skilling of young people across Namibia.
Thank you very much. First and foremost, perhaps it's very important to underscore the fact that what the previous speaker have just indicated in terms of skills and education. The Ministry of Sport, Youth and National Service, including our agencies, which is the National Youth Service and the National Youth Council, recognize the fact that there are a lot of young people that fall out of the system in terms of education and skills training. Hence, our national youth policy is based on the understanding that we need to take care of this segment of the population by imparting functional skills that will help them to improve their livelihood in their respective communities. They may not be in a position to attain a fully accredited, qualification, but with the programs that we offer, that are basically based on the 4 pillars of our national youth policy, that is education and skills development, upskilling, youth health and well-being, and also a focus on youth economic empowerment. Now, what is it that we do to take care of this segment of the population? We are talking of empowerment, and our empowerment programs are basically targeted interventions to assist these young people to get out of the situations in which they are. They did not make it in education, but if you provide opportunities for these young people to practice social innovation and rethink their own situation in terms of business development. Hence, we run a scheme that we call the Namibia Youth Credit Scheme. It is a scheme that does not discriminate, provided the young people are within the legal approved age in terms of our youth policy of between the ages of 15 and 35. They participate in this scheme through first being taken through basic business entrepreneurship training. And upon successful completion of such training, they qualify to be funded with seed funding for them to start their small businesses, irrespective of where they find themselves in a constituency, rural or urban, depending on the requirements of the scheme. We also focus on ensuring that the contemporary challenges that are facing young people of today in terms of life, one of the pillars of our youth policy is youth health and well-being. We do not want this segment of the population to be uninformed, to be on the loose and not to understand their surrounding. Hence, we have a strong focus on what we call youth-friendly health services. The youth-friendly health services are provided in the regions, not at the state hospital, but most of them are situated at our multi-purpose youth resource centers or some other location in the vicinity of that particular town or region. This is basically to allow our young people to freely access youth health information services so that they are empowered to make decisions on their own. And our regional youth officers, as community workers, are actually trained to support these young people in terms of providing that information. In terms of skills development, as I said earlier on, we offer what we call basic skills development for the young people that are not in school, not in education, not in training. A 2-3 month basic course in ICT or tailoring and what have you will allow that young person to get out of a situation and go and start something on their own. That is basically our focus. We do not want to keep them for a long time in education and training because they've been there before, they've faced challenges. But here is an opportunity that they have to still make life out of what we provide. Eventually, we have a bigger program in terms of the National Youth Service. The National Youth Service recruits equitably from all the 121 constituencies of the country. And it offers 3 services. We have civic training that the young people go through to impart skills in terms of learning the values, democratic values of the country and the strategic resources that we have. We have voluntary service. The young people are allowed to support national development through involvement in various national strategic, projects. And lastly, we also offer technical vocational education and training at a qualification level through the National Youth Service. So you can see these are the 3 layers or 4 layers that we, as a ministry, focus on to support the young people that are not in education, in training or employment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nicholas. I want to talk to Mr. Sikabongo on perhaps this event still and talk about the future of decentralization, especially, coming from the discussion that we just had earlier, talking about what has been spoken about in terms of decentralization. What future plans does the Ministry of Urban and Rural Development, have to enhance decentralization efforts, especially when it comes to education and youth development?
Thank you very much. Let me start off by perhaps reflecting or perhaps highlighting the reason why this particular day was instituted at continental level. It's recognized the fact that decentralization of carefully identified responsibilities is something that is central to development and investment of social and economic well-being of our society across the continent. And of course, Namibia is not excluded. In this respect, what we underscore is the fact that there has been a recognition of the fact that there is a need for continuous improvement in terms of our decentralization programs and reforms across the continent. Therefore, what we have started with as a country doesn't mean that it's going to stay as it is. As we speak, we are already undertaking some assessment in terms of what we have done so far. And this work is expected to culminate in some reviews, either of the policies and other legislations, depending on the outcome of these studies. So that we live according to our mandate as the ministry and government at large of ensuring that at all times our policies and legislations should be able to take us where we want to be. They must be relevant. They must provide a framework that is clear. and strengthened so that our subnational governments and the country or the government as a whole is effective in terms of decentralization. There is continuous engagement because our role is to coordinate and also engage stakeholders. Even the review at individual ministerial level, what we call monitoring and evaluation in terms of the performance of those functions that have been decentralized to ensure that they are being performed and they are meeting the determined objectives. So within this framework, different line ministries, as they review and they look at issues and the deliverables that they were supposed to provide, would be able to be in a position to make some determination as to whether they are still in line with the objectives that were set. What we emphasize more as part of our creation of an enabling environment through policy development and reviews, aspects of public participation are central to ensuring that government needs clearly identified needs of local communities, including the youth. And through the structures that have been developed or established so far in the form of constituency development committees and RCCs, there is also deliberate provisions in terms of how these structures have to be constituted, particularly when it comes to the inclusion of young people on those structures to ensure that their voices and their needs are addressed through those structures. That includes other groups that are considered special or vulnerable. We talk about people with disabilities, we talk about women. So these vehicles have been established for subnational government to utilize. And from central government point of view, we provide support in terms of ensuring that they have capacity to make these platforms more effective. There is also a need for us to ensure that interventions are sustainable, in the sense that you would not want to embark upon a program that would not deliver the results you desire in the long run, or maybe it will be short-lived. Obviously, it won't be beneficial because you will spend the resources that are scarce, in many cases, sometimes which you may not have at your disposal. So this is very, very important to take note of. The timeliness of services is something that is very important. We live in an age, as it had been alluded to earlier, where things need to be done faster. So by transferring these responsibilities and the creation of these structures at regional and local level, we bring these services to the level where these subnational government structures will be able to quickly and timely and more effectively respond and address issues that are affecting our communities at that level. So it is very important to note that we continuously reflect on this. One important aspect that we are looking at from central government point of view in terms of strengthening is that of ensuring that there is robust and clearly defined mechanism of resource mobilization to make sure that functions that are being decentralized are as well accompanied by requisite resources. That includes human and financial. And I think these are some of the issues that we are looking at. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that well-responded question. I want to touch now to Ms. Mwenyo and perhaps also tap your mind on, private and public partnerships and perhaps your analysis, perhaps also from the Oshikoto region in terms of the opportunities that you see public and private partnerships, have to enhance, the education skills especially, and skills training across the country, or perhaps just an example from the Oshikoto region?
Yes, thank you very much. Earlier on, I said as government, our role really is to create an enabling environment. Now, what we do is to really create an environment where development should take place and to foster that development. Now, one of the key things we really do is to create awareness on information and on government programs that are available. It is true that government alone cannot achieve everything. So we really, really need to collaborate with stakeholders within our regions. We should create platforms where stakeholders come together and to develop issues of common interest. Government should ensure that we are creating those conditions. One of our key roles is again also to provide infrastructure, because whatever investor would want to come in would need services to develop what it is that they want to develop. So we should make those enablers ready so that the environment is conducive. What we do also equally is to develop profiles for our respective regions that would spell out the opportunities that we have in the given regions. I like the idea of really us that have to localize development and even issues around education. That would simply mean for us to really look what is available in our regions and just to strengthen that and develop that. So as government, it is really our role to ensure that different stakeholders come together. We have collaborative efforts, have tailor-made programs to target specific groups. Here we're talking about the youth. So we should be able to have tailor-made programs. But one thing that is also very important is that whatever we do involving those that we are addressing a problem for. So we are creating an environment so that development can prosper.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to our dear panelists for that response. We're now going to give the opportunity to our audience to pose their questions. We're going to follow the same procedure, of course. You just raise your hand if you have a question. Yes, we have a representative there. Please just come to the front here by the mic here, and then you just introduce yourself, and you can pose your questions. You can also just stand behind him. The gentleman at the back, you can also just stand behind him, and we'll take note of the questions, and then we give a chance to our panelists to respond.
My name is Martin Kanyawa, a teacher by profession in the region. Before I pose my questions, maybe just a request. We have different stakeholders here. One of the stakeholders are learners. Can we also include them in our discussion? They are raising up their hand. They are noticed. Maybe we should hear from them first before other stakeholders. Thank you. Okay, my question goes like this. It's a very important topic, food production, school level. The ministry can do its part in terms of the national curriculum, basic education, to make sure that a child practice food production in terms of school gardening. But that child might aspire furthermore to continue with the career-wise at a higher institution. I'll go back to our region, Kavango in general. I will not separate the two Kavango region. Training institution in terms of food production, one student might aspire, want to continue more. They are limited. And then in the end, the dream is cut short, and then such student will pursue in other careers. If you look at Kavango West, where can a student go to continue with in terms of agriculture? So I think you highlighted availing an environment, infrastructure, such institution, maybe from central government, decentralized. How far did you go in terms of making sure that these training institutions are all in the 14 region? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, to our members of the youth that are, of course, here in the present, you are also welcome to give your contributions or post your questions. You are not limited at all. We do have another member who have a question, please.
Well, my name is Kanyanga Anastasia Elena from Kanjimi Mrangi Senior Secondary School. And my question goes to Mr. Nicholas Tembe. Mr. Nicholas outlined different programs, for example, BTC, program to empower the youth. Have the ministry learned that all learners are judged on tests and exams? In the end, some are labeled by the school community as stupid, just because such learners are not born with the inner nature of not milking the first pen and paperwork. Why does the ministry not bring this information to school to help such learners? For the youth who get a chance to enroll, does the ministry fund them to establish their own project?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that question. We'll allow 2 more questions. Yes, the 2 representatives, and then we can take time to get the responses.
Greetings, everybody. My name is Talalatia from Elsin Kurenkuru High School, and I have 2 questions to ask. The first question is, the levels of unemployment is very high among graduates in Namibia. Don't you think universities are just institutions where theories are what students learn and not how to survive in a society where unemployment is very high? And my second question is, don't you think one of the reasons for unemployment is not having more or broad courses in institutions like entertainment, education, and arts? Because there are only jobs for degrees like medicine, engineering, and etc. But what if you're not academically gifted? So people like this basically don't have a chance to get jobs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For our panelists, if the question perhaps doesn't, go in line with your title or role, if you have perhaps 2 cents on the question, you can also welcome to give your 2 cents. We're going to now give the last question. Yes, please.
Thank you very much. I'm Modestus Kasoma, and I'm also an advocate for decentralization. My question goes to the Director of Decentralization Coordination. But I have to start with the background of decentralization so that you can appreciate my question. See, this is a concept that was promoted in undemocratic societies, which advanced inequitable policies, economic and social policies. But now, the question is, we don't need to bring service to the people. That's decentralization. It's about, do those people are benefiting even if you bring service closer to the people? We have a bank here just outside. It's closer to us. Are we all economically empowered to use that service? Let me go back now to your role as a coordinator. There are institutions that are supposed to make sure that the regional government and the local authorities are held accountable and transparent. ACC is one of them, the Office of Ombudsman is one of them, and others, even in terms of the media. If you are not coordinating those institutions to come in the regions, only few will benefit, because these people in the offices, they will not be held accountable, or those leading the institutions. So, in the absence of those institutions, decentralization will not really achieve its purpose. My call is just to bring all institutions closer. And to my director of Ministry of Youth, Director of Development, Mr. Nicholas, I think you and me, we've engaged on several occasions about on the 4 pillars you have outlined. We are still, as a region, left out. There is no human resources. So we cannot talk about decentralization without human resources. Only few officers, or just only one officer, who is not even, let me say, is not even trained professionally to deal in some of the fields, especially in economic and health. But the work is just only given to her. When are we having those human resources so that those 4 pillars can also be realized as we are talking about decentralization? Thank you.
Thank you so much for those important questions. All right, we're now going to give the chance to our panelists to perhaps respond, perhaps in no particular order. Perhaps Mr. Nicholas, would you like to stake?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. I will respond to the first question from one of the learners. First, I want to state that we need to understand that we recognize different abilities of young people, be it learners in school or out of school. Therefore, it should not be based on the understanding that for young people to access services through the ministry, they should be judged based on their abilities, that they have failed or they did not make it in education, or something actually happened that prevented them from furthering their education. Hence, we are saying it's very, very important to take notice of the fact that in whatever happens, you know, one example that we can tap from is that, take for example, every year around February, the Minister of Education, Art and Culture, you know, hosts a very, very prestigious event to announce the results of the grade 11 and 12 of the previous year. What happens in that event is that the statistical information that is shared is that of young people or learners who have qualified for university. And they will say about 30,000 young people set for examinations in grade 12, and say, for example, 12,000 qualified for university. The question is always, what happens to the other number? And that is where the question of the young lady is based. To say, as the ministry, we are, or we do exist, to actually fill the gap and make sure that we provide empowerment opportunities to young people who do not make it, and assist them really to improve their livelihood. In terms of, there was a question on, or rather a comment on unemployment. We all agree that jobs are so scarce. And that's why even in the high-level discussions, be it Agenda 2063, the African Youth Charter, the SADC Protocol on Youth Development, the emphasis really is on ensuring that we create opportunities for young people, taking cognizance of the fact that jobs are scarce. And the areas that you have mentioned of entertainment, the art, you know, artificial intelligence that is being talked about now, and the digital innovation. These really are the areas that will help us and to mitigate the challenges that young people are facing in terms of unemployment. Because it's a fact that our economies in Africa, and particularly in Namibia at the moment, have faced serious challenges in terms of unlocking, employment opportunities for young people. So I just want to agree with your proposal on that one. The last one, my colleague from the youth fraternity, in terms of Kavango West, you know that whenever I'm here, and I expected that comment. I didn't know you were around, but we have deliberated on this several times. We have taken full cognizance of the fact that the region needs to be fully staffed so that all the 4 pillars of the youth empowerment that I have alluded to are taken care of. You will realize that in terms of infrastructure development, the CEO is there, my colleague. We have moved, a step further to establish at least a facility in progress now that young people can use for sporting events, which is going to be a multi-purpose youth and sport complex in Kurenkuru for Kavango West. So needless to say that the human resource, it's a matter that we are seized with, and I take note of your concern. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Christella, would you like to take perhaps a few questions?
No, in general, because I think the colleague has actually addressed all the questions, but in general, I really just want to comment to say that institutions really needs to be capacitated. We should strengthen all levels of government, national, regional, as well as local, to respond to the needs of the citizens. But I wanted to also stress to say resources will never be adequate. And that is why as government, we really advocate for collaboration from all stakeholders, public and private, to really come together and address the needs on the ground. But also in terms of resource allocation, it should really be equitable allocation of resources so that we are able to empower all the regions. Some regions are in a better position than others. So this is where equity comes into place to bring the others at the same level of those that are a little bit more advanced. But I wanted to also touch on issues of priority. When resources are not sufficient, it is important to prioritize and to place priority at the most critical needs. And that is the only way how we can achieve our plans. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Muinho. To our director, would you like to take on, of course, the questions on decentralization?
Thank you. Let me start by saying, with the adoption of the decentralization policy, as a country, we also adopted the slogan of bringing services closer to the people. Perhaps we have to also understand that one in context. Maybe going forward, we may also consider maybe reviewing that slogan so that people, communities, myself included, because when I'm not in the office, I become part of a community, should not have the understanding that things will simply be brought to them and they consume. Basically, we are simply saying we are moving from an approach where what local communities need is planned elsewhere, and bring that planning and delivery process to where they are so that they are part of the process, the planning, identification, and even the process of monitoring. I think these aspects have to be understood. So when these functions, whatever functions identified, are delegated and ultimately devolved to subnational government, it is expected of subnational government to have very strong and vibrant public participation structures, including those ones that are in place, and that these are fully utilized. And participation must not be perceived. It must be very practical, where community members bring ideas, and such ideas are interrogated and prioritized, and such are aimed at ensuring that the needs of those communities are addressed. This goes across social, economic, and the like. So it's very important. Another aspect that we always emphasize, and this must be taken note of both by central government institutions and subnational government institutions. And this is to say, at all times, we are in a unitary state, and there should be that level and degree of coherence between subnational government structures and central government institutions in terms of planning, in terms of collaboration and complementing one another. This is also acknowledging that subnational governments, your regional councils and local authorities, easily engage local communities because they are at the very grassroots level. So this whole concept, I think, should be understood in that context, that as communities, we have a responsibility and we have a role that must be practical to play in the delivery process of services. There was also reference to the aspect of holding our local government and the regional government accountable, and that the dependence on institutions such as ACC alone, is not enough, considering the fact that they may not have regionally based offices. But what we know is that that ministry, that office, have plans to set offices in different parts of the country and regions, and that has been a very gradual process. But what I want to emphasize is that the aspect of accountability cannot be left or be understood to be the responsibility of those oversight institutions alone, like Office of the Auditor General and the ACC, as was mentioned. Us as local communities, electorates, we have empowered and elected political leaders to lead our subnational government. As communities, they are accountable to us, and we hold them accountable because there are services and certain programs that they have undertaken to provide, which is the basis on which we have put them in those offices. And it is through these structures that we have just spoken about that we should demand that which is due to us. That is a process of holding our leaders accountable. And this accountability responsibility of government is not only limited to the local level, but even at national level. We are accountable to the people, and the people hold us accountable for that which they demand. And hence, soon we will be going through elections so that some mandates may be renewed, may be extended, or may be changed. And those that we put in office would be expected to deliver, and and that we should have that engagement where they have to really provide that accountability. Administratively, we have those provisions that are in place in terms of ensuring that there are regular accountability reports in terms of finances that are being disbursed to subnational government. And of course, from a central government point of view, where such accountability are not provided, measures can be taken, including the possibility of withholding further disbursement of resources if there is no convincing explanation as to why accountability cannot be provided on earlier disbursed resources. Maybe let me close with the last part. Of course, Mr. Tembwe touched on this aspect in terms of the capacity of the Ministry of Sport, Youth and National Service at regional level. As part of the decentralization preparatory process, this aspect of the human resource capacity and also other resources, particularly to, in the areas of youth centers and other programs. It's one aspect that has been looked at, and the ministry has been undertaking some parallel programs in terms of reviewing local structures, such that you have enough manpower and of that level which will be able to carry the mandate that will be transferred to the subnational government. So we want to always have that balance. Perhaps what we should emphasize and indicate is that where we are going to start, we may not have adequately provided, but at the same time, we don't want to continuously delay this process. We may choose to determine to start with what we may find relatively sufficient to start with, and we build on as we continue, particularly given the fact that this was a new region. Yes.
Thank you so much for the very, very well response there. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, and we are being warned that we will go off broadcast if we continue to stay on longer. But of course, these consultations do not end here. We are going to be having an event tomorrow here as well, so you are going to have the chance to even, closely engage with our stakeholders and of course our guests to, of course, get more answers and of course get even more responses from them. But to my panelists, thank you so much for making the time to speak to us this afternoon. I think they clearly deserve a round of applause. Thank you so much. And to our audience, thank you so much also for making the time to be with us today, to listen and of course also engage with us. We really appreciate your time. I'm now going to hand over to the Director of Ceremonies to of course officiate the closing of the event.
All our panelists for this very insightful engagement. In closing, time is not on our side. Let me just go through the program for tomorrow. Sorry, I don't have my glasses on. So tomorrow we are starting at 7:30 with a march from the junction. If you drive with this third road up there, there's a junction that goes to Nkurenkuru Elsen High School. That's where the march is going to be, where we are going to start, and we are going to be assisted by the Namibian police. And then we'll be coming to this venue here. All our dignitaries will be arriving, and then we are going to start again with a prayer. We'll have the welcoming remarks by the Mayor of Nkurenkuru, and then a statement by the Honorable Governor of Kavango West Regional Council, of Kavango West Region. Then we'll have remarks by the guest speaker, who is going to be the Minister of Education, Honorable Esther Anna Ipondoka. Then we'll have the keynote address by the Honorable Erastus Utoni, Minister of the Ministry of Urban and Rural Development. And it's going to be a draw of the Regional Council to host next year's celebrations. After that, there will be some performances in between, and then a vote of thanks, and then there will be some refreshments. I have a few announcements to make. These sofas that you are seeing here is from FENMAT and its own promotion. Please, if you need to, they've given us to use it for free, so it's on promotion at FENMAT Kurenkuru. And then tomorrow, we are also going to have a bus that we have arranged to pick up, our local communities who are coming to this event in Kurenkuru. The bus will depart from Kapago constituency office at 6 o'clock, and then they will pick up, the pickup points in Kapago constituency will be at Mnyondo Gwakapande, at Bunya bus stop, Muwewe bus stop, and Mahenzere check-in. And then in Msese constituency, they will pick up at the constituency office at Rupara, Mahenzere check-in, and then Siko at Mbandu Murangi School, and then Ola Visivute Combined School. Then in Tondoro constituency, the bus will stop at Bruno Shop, Nankudu bus stop, Kahenge bus stop, and Zinze Combined School. Those are the announcements. We also have some exhibitors outside. Some of our exhibitors have started exhibiting today while we expect more tomorrow. So on our way out, please let's pass by and see what is on those stalls. Without wasting time, let me thank you all for your time, for, gracing this occasion. Without your presence, we couldn't have had this very insightful, very informative engagement. I want to thank our learners with their teachers who left their schools and, to come and join us. We thank you for your questions. We look forward to having you tomorrow again. So let us stand up and close with the AU and the national anthems.